6 dialing back the tariffs. Why President Trump says he's pausing import taxes on everyone but China.
Plus, we'll explain how tariffs are affecting the strength of the U.S. dollar and what that means for border communities like ours. And the second installment of property taxes due today. What happens if you don't pay up?
You're watching CBS 8 Mornings at 6.
Thanks for joining us here at 6 a.m. on this Thursday. I'm Eric Connert.
And I'm Netta Irampour. We want to start with that forecast because, it is something worthy of starting with.
It is.
So nice.
I will say, San Diego always is worthy of that type of introduction. But in particular, today and tomorrow, those very warm days out across San Diego County, where temperatures could be reaching well into the 80s across our inland valleys, where we could be near triple digits across the deserts. The only issue that we're running into is this, the pesky fog out there to start off the morning. Dense fog advisory is in play. We have less than a third of a mile in San Diego, Imperial Beach, and Ramona seeing some issues as well. Kearney Mesa at 5 miles. So we'll watch for that between now and about 9 a.m. before improvements are made. Low to mid 70s out by the coast, mid 80s inland, warming up as well for the mountains and deserts. Coming up, we'll talk about today and tomorrow being those days of peak heat, but what's going to happen after with a decent cool down on the way. Back to you.
Through your thinking about why you decided to put a 90-day pause.
Well, I thought that people were jumping a little bit out of line. They were getting yippy, they were getting a little bit yippy, a little bit afraid, unlike these champions, because we have a big job to do. No other president would have done what I did. No other president. I know the presidents, they wouldn't have done it. And it had to be done.
President Donald Trump insisted there would be no negotiations over his tariff plans. But with nearly every economic indicator breaking against his decision, he reversed course. Today, President Trump expected to meet with his cabinet at the White House.
It comes a day after he pressed pause on his punishing reciprocal tariffs against most countries except China. CBS 8's Regina Yarita live downtown to explain how some businesses are reacting to all of this here. Regina?
Yeah, good morning, Eric and Netta. And what we're noticing just by hearing some business owners is that there's still lots of uncertainty. Yesterday, we noticed the U.S. stock market surge immediately after President Donald Trump announced his 90-day pause for his new tariffs. But those delays and the pause that we're noticing from yesterday still is bringing lots of confusion since it's unclear what will happen after. He's expected to meet with his cabinet today, so we could be looking at more updates. But on Wednesday, the president did decide on a universal 10% rate on reciprocal tariffs for countries that did not retaliate. The tariff rate of 10% includes the European Union, which the EU now announced it will also put its retaliation measures against new U.S. tariffs on hold for 90 days to match President Donald Trump's pause and leave room for a negotiated solution. The White House says more than 70 countries are open to negotiating. For China, on the other hand, the Trump administration increased the tariff rate on Chinese imports to 125%, and that comes after Beijing responded yesterday with countermeasures. The president wrote on Truth Social that this is based on the lack of respect that China has shown to the world's markets. As far as the previous tariff rates on steel, aluminum, and auto imports, that remains unchanged. But here's what the president had to say about this.
The market right now is beautiful. But yeah, I saw last night where people were getting a little queasy.
And that's not the only concern. The U.S. dollar to Mexico peso exchange rate is also playing a big role, especially with our proximity to the border. We want to bring in CBS 8 Chris Groh. He's live in San Ysidro with more on how the peso value is being impacted by President Donald Trump's recent trade policies. Chris, what can you tell us?
Yeah, Regina, a lot of back and forth. Fluctuation is probably the best way to put it, especially because how it is that the dollar compares to the peso may not be the same as how the dollar compares to other major currencies, just because so much of this relies on how those are exchanged with each of those individual trades, if you will. But we did take the question about this fluctuation to an associate professor at San Diego State University in economics to talk about this. And here's a little bit about what he said about the reasoning of why we're seeing this back and forth.
Tariff on imports means that there's an expectation that people are going to buy fewer imported products. So fewer imported products means that they're going to be putting up less of the domestic currency to buy foreign currency. So fewer dollars are going to be exchanged for pesos, and therefore we'd expect that the dollar is going to get stronger because people are selling fewer dollars, they're buying fewer pesos.
So prior to yesterday, the dollar was actually getting stronger against the peso because, according to HODE, people were anticipating a decline in exports from Mexico to the U.S. And then when we saw the pause in tariffs, again, these are being the reciprocal tariffs, so not exactly impacting Mexico, we technically saw the dollar get weaker against the peso because people then saw that the fall in exports in Mexico was not going to be as much as we thought. It is so reliant upon how the two countries trade between each other and also private businesses. Now, when the U.S. poses in tariffs on Mexican goods, it is expected to reduce American demand. That leads to fewer dollars being exchanged. That's why we see decreasing demand for the peso. Now, HODE went on to add that tariffs affect exchange rates primarily through that consumption. Again, how it is that we consume goods and that markets, people are trading based off of expectations, what they are forecasting. Now, we should point out that according to CNN, an index recently measured the dollar against other major currencies and noting that it was down nearly 0.9% as of Wednesday morning. Of course, that was before the announcement about that 90-day pause, but that drop was even lower than the level that it dropped to the previous week. And according to one economist, a weaker dollar is not usually how markets respond to U.S. tariffs. Now, what does this all mean? Essentially, you got to just make sure that you are following what these exchange rates are daily, especially if it is something that you do on the regular, if you're traveling to and from and out of Mexico, if you are, again, someone who travels frequently into again, to the country of Mexico, and maybe you try to capitalize when you are seeing that the peso is actually weaker against the U.S. dollar. When you're able to get more of those pesos, keep following those exchange rates and just see exactly where the rest of these decisions leave us moving forward. Eric and Netta.
Okay, good to know. Chris, thank you for that. U.S. inflation declined last month as the cost of gas fell, a sign prices cooled before tariffs. The Labor Department says that consumer prices rose just 2.4% in March. That's from a year prior. That's down from 2.8% in February. It is the lowest inflation figure since September. Excluding the volatile food and energy categories, core prices rose 2.8% compared with a year ago. That's down from 3.1% in February.
This just in here, a U.S.-Russian dual national imprisoned in Russia on treason charges is on a plane back home to the United States right now. Secretary of State Marco Rubio made the announcement overnight. This was all part of a prisoner exchange. Ksenia Karlina, a former ballet dancer, was arrested in February of 2024 while visiting family in Russia. She was convicted of treason later that year on charges stemming from a donation of about $52 to a charity aiding Ukraine. The Wall Street Journal reports in exchange for Karolina, the U.S. handed over Arthur Petrov, a German-Russian arrested in 2023 at the request of the U.S. He was being held on allegations of exporting sensitive microelectronics. Well, today the House could vote on a budget blueprint. Republicans in support of it say it will not cut Medicaid or Social Security assistance for qualified beneficiaries.
The plan already has the green light from the Senate. If the House passes it, it'll likely be the foundation for how the U.S. spends money over the next few years. Democrats say they're worried about what it could mean for Medicaid. The plan asks the House Energy and Commerce Committee to come up with $880 billion in cuts. Analysts say it's hard to do that without affecting Medicaid. Republicans say they do not want to eliminate that program, but they do want to refine it. Up in Sacramento, State Assemblyman Carl DeMaio expected to force a vote on the Assembly floor today. DeMaio wants to revoke taxpayer funding for undocumented health care. He also wants to cancel the high-speed rail project. The vote, expected to happen at 9 this morning, will be sure to bring you the latest as it all unfolds in Sacramento later on. And a heads up.
Heads up to your homeowners out there. The second installment of your property taxes is due here today. If you don't pay by today, you will be in delinquent status. You'll have to pay delinquency penalties. That includes a 10% penalty and a $10 fee. You can go pay your second installment online. The county is expecting property tax payments to generate a record $9.1 billion. An update now, the city of San Diego is lowering its proposed trash collection fees. If approved, the new monthly fees would be as follows: $36.72 for a 35-gallon bin, $42.88 for a 65-gallon bin, and $47.59 for a 95-gallon bin. The money would go into the city's general fund. The city has been soliciting feedback from residents over the past few weeks. The new fees will be presented to the city council next week, and a hearing and a final vote could be scheduled as early as June.
On average, the 95-gallon bin is what most people have.
Yes,
homes,
right.
the big ones. All right, let's talk forecast here.
Let's.
Fog this morning?
Fog this morning, yet again. I think
Okay.
we're going to be a bit of a broken record between now and next week talking about the daily fog, because it seems like even over the weekend, even as temperatures cool down, we'll still be watching for that morning fog. The question on hand is, will it spread east? Because it's mainly been a coastal issue. It was yesterday. It is this morning. There are a couple spots off toward Ramona, for example, where there's a little pocket of fog, but we could start to see it become a little bit more easterly stretching as we go into the upcoming weekend. That dense fog advisory for now only in effect out along the coastline, visibility below a quarter mile at times, and hazardous driving conditions, meaning you should leave space between yourself and other vehicles. Between now and 9 a.m. or so, we should start to see those clouds break apart. After that, we'll be moving toward mostly sunny skies, and temperatures along the coast could be warming up to the mid-70s out there. Models are in a bit of disagreement as to how quickly this fog will dissipate and how much that ridge of high pressure will have an effect on us. So I will say some models stay at about 72, 73 degrees this afternoon. Others jump up to 77, 78 degrees as our afternoon high along the coast. Either way, keep in mind, average is 68 degrees. So we're going to be above average for that high. Here's a live look outside. This is from Mount Soledad, showing that blanket layer of haze. We've got the fog continuing not only into this morning, but for mornings to come. Temperatures are going to be warming their way up into the 70s, 80s, 90s, even triple digits possible for this afternoon and tomorrow afternoon. Tomorrow afternoon in particular is going to be a warm one. And then we'll see a slip in temperatures over the course of the weekend all the way through the beginning of next week that takes us back to average. You see how today and tomorrow are their standout warmer days. And then that slide in temperatures comes for Saturday, Sunday, and Monday especially. We start off next week back around the 70s. It's not going to be cold necessarily, but it will be absolutely cooler than what we've been working with. About a 15-degree drop in temperatures expected from tomorrow afternoon all the way through Monday afternoon. Let's check in on drive times and how things are looking on your roads outside. We haven't seen any major crashes popping up. We do see that mid-span Coronado Bridge. Things are starting to slow down a bit. Northbound 5 from National City to downtown also slowing down slightly. And the yellow on the screen there is your road weather index, showing that you should ideally be leaving that space between you and other vehicles with visibility down to a quarter mile. Let's look at your border wait times to start off the day. 105-minute wait, a little bit faster than yesterday. It's going to take you about an hour 45 or so at the San Ysidro Port of Entry. Otay Mesa Port of Entry should get you across just a bit quicker in about an hour and a half.